Azure SQL and Cloud SQL are similar in many ways. Both are managed relational database services that utilize commercial relational database management systems. Azure and GCP will manage the infrastructure of the databases to include the instances, backups, updates, and failover. The user is still responsible for data management, schema construction, and user management. Reads and writes can be scaled differently. For the write database, the instance can only be vertically scaled. You can make a single write database larger, and you can horizontally scale reads with read replicas and put them in different zones or availability zones. A failover replica can be built in another zone or availability zone. The cloud provider is responsible for the failover process. Both Azure and GCP support a range of database engines. Cloud SQL is a fully managed relational database service for MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQL Server. Azure SQL supports MySQL, PostgreSQL, Microsoft SQL Server, and MariaDB. Let's compare Cloud SQL and Azure SQL. In Azure SQL, you use VNet firewall rules to authorize connections. In Cloud SQL, you use VPC firewalls, Cloud SQL proxy, or authorize networks by adding IP addresses to a whitelist. Both Azure SQL and Cloud SQL support the use of SSL for encrypted external connections. You can also use Cloud SQL proxy to encrypt connections to Cloud SQL databases. In Azure SQL, you can enable encryption of data at rest. Cloud SQL customer data is encrypted by default when on Google's internal networks and when stored in database tables, temporary files, and backups. You can create a read replica in Azure SQL. In Cloud SQL for MySQL, you can create a read replica of a Cloud SQL instance. You can also create an external database or instance that replicates from a Cloud SQL master and create a replica in Cloud SQL from external master instances. In Azure SQL, backups are enabled by default. In Cloud SQL, you can optionally enable automatic backups.